A little bit of a delay. Yeah. You see in person, you can come on and see it go. All right. Welcome, everybody. I see many familiar faces, but allow me to introduce myself again. Hi, I'm Antonio Falciglia. This is our wonderful model, Jocelyn.
Hi, guys. I'm a Pro Studio key holder here, and I also do help run the Instagram page. So if you guys take any photos or videos, definitely tag us on IG. We're Pro Studio period NYC, and then we're also on TikTok as Pro Studio NY.
All right, perfect. So, doing bridal, I know you've probably seen my bridal classes before, but we are doing a little bit differently because today is a new launch. So we did this launch, our new concealer. This is our HD Skin Full Cover. This is replacing our matte velvet concealer as well as our old full cover concealer that we've had for like 15 years. So we'll talk a little bit more about the assortment as we get into it. But let's go ahead and get started. So let's do a really quick prep on Jocelyn. And let's talk about bridal. When we're thinking about bridal makeup, shout out some things we're thinking about bridal. Neutral like colors. Yeah, that can totally, that's definitely something that we see a lot, especially like in our major metropolitan areas. We see a lot of like neutral colors of New York, LA, like where's the Nashville. What else are we thinking about bridal? Layout. We can do full coverage, really depends. Long lasting, there we go. We're talking long lasting. Right, fresh, yeah. So I won't be because we don't sell lashes. I won't be doing anything, but I'll show you how you can really get like almost a falsy out of the skin. Oh, honestly, bridal at the end of the day, it's a bed makeup. So there's a few things we would want to keep in mind when we're talking about bed makeup, and that's we have to think about long lasting, like you said. So it's got to be long lasting. I will say, out of all of the weddings I've worked in my career, I think I've been booked for the full vapor touch-ups twice. So you want to make sure that your bride is leaving that chair and it's not really going to move or change throughout the day. A couple other things you want to think about when it comes to bridal makeup / event makeup is we're talking a lot of light sourcing. So oftentimes weddings will be daytime. There's going to be flash photography. There may be standing lights like this. We're talking like red carpet, like event makeup. So we want to make sure that the makeup is wearable, but impactful enough that's going to actually still register with, light hitting in from all corners. Now we're going to go in and we'll talk a little more about as we go in. So just using my Solo Water to cleanse Jocelyn's skin. I did a quick spray of our Mist and Fix. It is a setting spray, but also a priming spray. So I wanted a quick little layer of irrigation so that when I lay down the primers, they can just rub a little quicker. So Jocelyn, tell us a little bit about your skin.
Right now, I feel pretty normal, but I get really sweaty and somewhat oily in my T-zone area.
Okay. So a little bit of extra oil production in the T-zone. Super common. Even your driest client will generally get a little bit more shine in that center. Now, I will say personal preference, myself as an artist, I don't typically like to do anything too mattifying underneath the makeup. It can make blending on top of it a challenge. So what I am going to do is we'll to go in with our full minimizer. We talk a little bit more about the primer, so we can and the differences between. Yeah, so I'm going to go into it a little bit more now. So we do have about 8 primers. I am only using 2 right now. So I have a little bit of our Hydro Booster primer on this side and a little bit of our pore minimizer on this side. So since Jocelyn gets a little bit more oil production in that center, I'm going to do the pore minimizer really in the center. It's generally where your clients also have the most concerns about enlarged pores, a little bit more texture. Not always, but often. And then I'm also going to do a little bit of our Hydro Booster just in the perimeters, like by the individual, a little bit on the neck, maybe just the corner of the forehead. And that just to give a little bit more of a thick surface for our foundation to really kind of glide over. We don't need to overhydrate nothing because, like she said, she's pretty normal at this moment. So let's go ahead and go in with our pore minimizer. So really when you see smoothing, pore minimizer, things like this in your makeup products, a lot of times we're going to be silicone based because some source on top of the skin, it's really good for smoothing. You really want to be careful with how much you're doing. Who here has ever used like a smoothing primer and like shellacked it on? I will say, back in my day, when I first started doing makeup, the Smashbox photo finish, because that's what every YouTuber was using. Girl, I used to buy that every other week. Use too much of a silicone base, so I guess smoothing powder because it rests on top of the skin, it doesn't really let makeup adhere very well. So I'm just going with that smallest bit, being into a brush, and I'm just something that's like a smoothing primer. Silicones do help to mitigate a little bit of oil production. Not a ton like your shine control primers or your mattifying primers, but just enough. Smallest bit here, but we didn't overly dry out our skin. Now I was gonna flip this one away over and I'm going to do a little bit of a hydro booster. Now we do my Jocelyn's actually pretty normal right now. Long-lasting makeup, waterproof makeup. They can start to dry down on the skin of that and they can start to feel that way on your bride. Think about 6 hours later, if that's gonna keep pulling out moisture from her skin. May not be the best feeling, especially at that party point where they're like dancing around, that's where the most confident they can. Want to make sure that there's still a little bit of hydration underneath. But you don't want to overhydrate the skin because that with your long wear makeup may not actually have the opportunity to dry down. And yours can totally use multiple primers on someone's skin. Not everyone has the same type of skin all across the face, so you don't need to use the same type of primer all across the face. My only recommendation with that is you want to patch your primer, so using certain ones in certain areas. If you overlay too many primers on top of each other, it can again sort of cause your makeup to fail afterwards. 100% alcohol. 70% is your best friend when it comes to sanitizing. I know we've seen like the 90s and like the 99%. Those are great for like alcohol activated paints and stuff like that. But in terms of sanitation, they can evaporate a little too quickly to really show the bacteria in detail. So this is the HD Skin Full Cover Foundation. I would love to say that this is a 2025 full coverage. This is not our 2012 full coverage. So we can get a lot of coverage out of it, but it's not going to be very heavy or very thick. So the way that we kind of wrap out of this way is it's a pretty thin formula, but we packed in 27% pink into it. So not a super heavy body or super heavy finish to it, but it is going to still cover everything you need to cover. Anyone who's used the old full cover, they are not the same. Letting you know that. But this one has such a great assortment when it comes to colors with such great coverage. This one has 32 colors across 4 color families. So anyone here who has used HD Skin before, you know that we have the same number system across all of them. So it's a number, a letter, and then 2 more numbers. So the way that we kind of characterize our HD Skin line is the first number is talking about color family. So 1 is going to be fair, 2 medium, 3 tan, 4 deep. That second character is a letter. So it's going to be N, Y, or R, indicating the undertone. So N for neutral, Y for warm, and R for cool. And then those last 2 characters are 2 more numbers just discussing surface depth. So like 00 for super fair, all the way to 78 for super deep. So I did grab 3 colors. So right here we have our 2N22. Right here I have our 1N10. And over here I have our 4N71. Do any of these match Jocelyn? No, because we're going to underpaint with them. I've never underpainted before. Yeah, have you ever like underpainted? Like did like the highlight and the contour underneath the foundation with unifying color? Yeah. What did we like about underpainting? What are some challenges you find about underpainting? Yeah.
Maybe I didn't go handed enough, but I felt like once I applied my foundation, then like it disappeared. But
Okay. Anyone else? So underpainting, I will say it goes a little bit differently than what oftentimes we'll hear as like when you highlight and you do like your foundation first, it should be 1 to 2 shades lighter. Same thing with like your contour, 1 to 2 shades deeper. We're talking about underpainting because we are putting another complexion product over it. That needs to go to like 4 to 6 shades lighter, or like 4 to 6 shades deeper, because we're muting some of it once we do like unifying color on top. So I'm gonna put a little bit of Jocelyn's actual complexion shade on here. So her complexion shade is our HC Skin Liquid. She is 3 and 42. You can see her foundation shade. These are going to be the ones we use to highlight, and this is what we're going to use to sculpting. Very far away from where her actual complexion is. So I'm going to go in with our 144 brush, and I'm going to start dipping into that 2N22 first. I like to really feed it into the brush, pick up the product, and then even distribute on a clean part of the pan, so there's not any like single concentration on the brush. So I'm able to really like perfect. Now, right where the light is getting off of her cheekbones is exactly where I'm facing in this first highlight shade. Now, working with someone's natural morphology, the natural bone structure is really helpful in a general sense for us as artists to be able to blend out, not have all the guesswork and like restructure someone's face. But what's really important about this when it comes to bridal or even event makeup is when I think bridal, I think about the person who is not my chair. That person who the wedding's on Friday. Who was she on Monday? Who is she gonna be next Wednesday? This may be somebody who wears chapstick and mascara as her makeup routine. So I do like a full heavy like reality TV kind of beat on somebody. Objectively, it could look beautiful, but when your client looks at themselves in the mirror, they are not going to feel like themselves. And half the battle is making sure that they're doing great work, but that they still feel good about themselves. A little bit on separate completion. Pick a little bit. Not as an entire bridge of the nose, but really just around the bottom half. And then because it Jocelyn's brows a little bit closer together, we're just going to create a little bit of space by highlighting there. I'm just going to provide a little bit more with that second fair shade that I think it's that one end back. We're going to go a little bit more depth. Not a ton, but a little bit. So now, taking a little bit of that even more fair shade, that 1N10 on that same 144 brush. And where I want a little bit more of a pocket of highlight to really peek out in that light. So right at the top of her cheekbone. A little bit further up where I that's going coming to in the center of the forehead. A little more just on the bottom of her thing. And right here for her nose. You can do a lot of things to highlight. So right here. For a little bit of expression that we want to even out the thing here. So 27% pigment. This is also like a skincare based concealer. So it has niacinamide, has hyaluronic acid, and has pomegranate extract. So it's really nourishing for the skin, which is great because oftentimes with heavier makeup, you don't really get a lot of like benefits from it. Now that we have our highlights done, I'm going to go. Same 144 brush. All of our brushes are synthetic, so they wipe off really easily. I don't like to clean brushes, so I will use the same brush as many times as I can. Fine. Please. So I'm going to go in and with the tips of that 144, I'm going to dip into that 4 and 71, and we're going to start building in our skull. We can distribute, same with the highlight. I'm not feeding it into the body of the brush so hard. It's really just on the tip and top of the skin. So we turn this way, and we can see that she has a natural dip in the skin already. We're going to use that as our guide. So if I can throw this back by the hinge of the jaw. I always like to connect my client and see really what they're looking for from their makeup. Oftentimes, someone's thinking about contour. under the cheeks is a really common place that a lot of people think contour. This is where they think contour goes. But they can always want something like they want to contour their nose, they want to contour their jawline. It's really personal preference, and you really want to kind of do those exploratory questions with your mind and making sure that you're not just like jumping the gun, because contouring is great. It can do so much for the face. But let's say I contour my client's nose, they may kind of take that a different way. So you want to make sure that you're really connecting with them and have an exploratory session before you kind of go into it. Now, underpainting, this is not the time that you really let things out. You really want to just kind of lay it down where you want that intensity to build up most. Because when you lay down that like unifying color, is where you're going to blend everything out. At this point, it's almost like painting brush strokes. Does anyone basically contour your face?
I really don't.
You're not helping. So even though I'm not going to do a ton of contour all over, but because I have this contour right in the center of the face by like the hinge of the jaw, we're thinking about the proportions of the face and we're going top to bottom. The proportions of your face are split into three. So 1, 2, 3. And we're thinking proportions of the face going left to right to left, however you look at it. It's split into 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When I'm playing with colors like my highlight and contour, I want to make sure that there is a little bit of unity amongst those proportions. So because I have this in that center of that vertical 1, 2, 3, I want a little bit of that color living in that top portion and that bottom portion. Just because if I have that color existing in only one area of the face, it's going to kind of stick out like a sore thumb. So we're thinking about balance. I'm not going to contour her forehead per se or her jawline per se, but having just that color there, so it's existing in all like aspects, just balance. So take a little bit and really gently feeding it just to the hairline by the vertical. You see, it's not enough that you're like really like seeing it. They're going to contour her forehead. Makeup is such a game of balancing. We want to make sure that we are keeping these like kind of little notions in mind. For contour, I always think about it as like if somebody wants like really snatched cheekbones or like a really defined jawline, think about how that looks on somebody who naturally has those proportions. So when they about like really high cheekbones, I'm thinking Bella Hadid. And if you look at a photo of her face forward, you can see the darkest part of her natural contour is for this back here. That's where the cheekbone is sticking out the most to give her that really strong like up at her cheekbone. Same thing for like jawline. I'll think like Zac Efron. Same thing, super strong in the we were looking at photo earlier. Super strong at the back, so we're going to want the point of intensity. That's where it's going to be the most saturation, unlike when we're naturally at the focus. And we go in with our unifier. So this is going to be the HD skin stuff. HD skin, same thing. This is going to have 39 colors across 4 color families. Follows the same color system that we talked about earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit more. Now this is a medium to full coverage. So as you were saying, you did underpainting and a lot of it kind of disappeared. So that could have been 2 things in my like initial thought. And maybe the highlight and contour weren't far enough away from the unifier color, or the foundation you laid on top was too full coverage. Because it was something that you're trying to unify with, you need to still let these keep through. So because this is medium to full coverage, I'm not going to really like pack on that coverage with a foundation brush. I'm actually going to go with something a little bit more sparse. So something that's custom to like a cover brush. And go with our 152. Because it's a little bit more spread out at the tops, it's not going to pack on so much at once. So it allows you to just like very gently build up layers, which is also really great for anything like event makeups. Because you're not just like shellacking on a ton of pigment. You're building it up to a point that looks good, but also their skin can handle. Not some people can handle a lot of makeup, some people can't. My skin honestly can't handle that much makeup anymore. So I'm going to go in with that 342 HD stick, a 152 brush. I'm going to start buffing this in and running out those highlights first. What's the pressure like? Super light. And when, especially when you're doing something like bridal makeup, do you want people to tell the bride, your skin looks amazing, not your makeup looks great? So working in very thin layer and really building up the additional kind of like weight of makeup where you like absolutely need it is a really great way to go about your foundation application. Something I will say is Jocelyn, I already know that she takes care of her skin. Not always the case with your bride. So what I like to do is, especially if I'm building a property, I already kind of start seeing where they may have texture happen, especially if you're doing like winter bridal. And you know there's some drag girls out there. A good way to go about applying foundation instead of going back and forth too much, which kind of causes manual exfoliation with your brush, is kind of stretch it down. Just thinking about something like, peach fuzz or dry skin, typically when you start to see texture get creative with them, skin flakes upward. And same thing, a lot of times peach fuzz will grow down, so I start kind of scraping upward, it's going to cause a lot more texture. So I think brushing them. I love HD skin, even though it's meaningful coverage. I love it for anything, whether I'm underpainting or anything that I know needs to be longer. Anything HD skin, like our new or this HD skin foundation, because it's that natural matte, is a waterproof, sweat resistant, silicone based foundation, so it helps to smooth out the skin. But also, what I like about it is it's not just like a really like giant silicone; it's a bunch of small ones. So it really helps with that, and it creates like this micro skin system that really blankets over the skin, and because it is a waterproof formula. What it does is when it dries down, that's where it stays. So who here has ever done someone's makeup super beautiful? You're look at them an hour later, scanning their smile lines, it's piercing. Crow's feet, piercing. This one it stays where it dries down and then just moves the animation through the skin. So when this dries down, stop silence and then relax. It's not going to get into any of her like natural form line because we're not plastic. We're going to make expressions. Do this class here once in a while. Her name is Nikki Carrera, and she says it so perfectly when it comes to bridal is you always want to take into consideration that this is a multimedia bride. You need to look good in person, on camera, on that video. A little bit of a higher shirt today, so like you don't worry about hanging the top. But when you're doing a bride, you're responsible for all the skin that you see. So you want to make sure that this is matching this. Sometimes you have to do their legs, sometimes you do parts of their hands. It's involved. And you can do it all with a brush. I don't love airbrushing myself, but people who do like bridal a lot will typically get used to or get familiar with airbrush guns. Airbrush?
No.
And she does Jersey bridal. Yeah, I mean, there's so much you can do with like formulas nowadays. Some people like airbrush because it is really quick and you're hitting like a mass area. But me personally, I've done pretty well for myself not doing airbrush, so I'm good. All right, now that we've run down the highlights, now we can go in and start running out the top. I like to do the highlights first, and then the contour second. Because if I start to pull some of the light over the dark, it's not going to get really muddy or gray. Whereas if I start blending out with contour, we're going to have that contour color with my brush. It's going to eliminate a lot of pattern. Another reason I like doing this is a really nice. So I like to think about it as if you take a white piece of paper and a black crayon, and you swipe that black crayon across, you're going to see full saturation of that black crayon. If you take a black piece of paper and a white crayon and you swipe it across, turns gray. Lighter colors have less pigment than deeper colors. So if I try to blend a highlight into a contour, it do run the risk of it getting a little muddy. Especially when there's such a contrast between my highlight and contour now. I don't want to cause that muddiness to occur. Very simply, with that beautifying color and then pushing upwards to blend into our highlighting. So I did highlight into contour, can get money, doing contour to highlight, get the gradient. Of course, it's not always like one type of, oh, this is the only way you can do it. This is just one way of thinking about it. This is a way that has always worked for me. But if you go about it some way, you can do it. The best piece of advice I ever got from like a manager. I was 16 working in Starbucks. And she was doing her cappuccino totally different than like the book was saying. And I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, you can do it any way that works for you. I'm like, oh. And I had that with me for all my that. 17 years. You see, I'm not really doing much anymore. I just keep working this foundation into her skin. This is actually going to help you kind of warm with that product on her skin and just really melt it in. Figure 242, this is a lot of us use this as an eyeshadow brush. This is my favorite concealer brush on the planet. I'm just going to take a little bit more of that foundation. And this has been sitting on the pan for a little bit, so it starts to dry down. So it's going to actually go on with coverage right after that. A lot of times you see like on social media, they'll like place it and then let it sit on the skin for like 2 minutes. Same concept, I'm just not letting it sit on the skin. Fluffy brushes because the other eye stuff is in their skin. But I always find that this plastic is the eye under eye much cleaner than also the way to. You can do foundation, throw up those layers, and add a little bit more after, add a little bit more. Take a big old foundation brush, this is our 109. No product on it, we're just gonna bounce over the skin and blend out anything that you know. You don't have to learn that with that brush forward. I would say that the brush that you use to, blend things out or kind of like move things around, so that aren't meant to apply product, are just as important as those ones that you're applying product. Now with this one, you're gonna spend all that time working the foundations into Johnson's skin. It's gonna pick up anything that her skin's not actually holding onto. Like I was saying earlier, it's not everyone's skin can hold the same amount of makeup. And now everything that's going on here is what we're gonna hit the with. It's going to go for all the skin you see. And I would say the ears are really important when you know there's going to be photos. Because if there is alcohol involved, your ears generally turn red. Alcohol thins the blood, your ears, especially the tops, will get really red. So it's like there's a little extra foundation there. Again, I've been booked for all day touch-up session twice in 9 years. I ever booked for like an all-day touch-up session.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm looking prior because there's times where I have the things on the same day as well. So that's discussed during like even during like trials. But I honestly, I do love it because then if they're transitioning into like taking photos afterward and then going to the reception, like some people do like to be a little bit more fashion touch. If not, I usually just offer like a little touch up kits and there you go. The availability for me to be.
Now, I haven't powdered Dawson skin or anything yet. We'll transfer. We want this to last all day. We'll lock in with a little bit more powder just in case, but HD skin and the concealers, just this. Make your life easier. Off our 10, we're studying with alcohol. HD skin, the liquid foundation, there are 39 colors. I carry 12 in my, no, 15 in my head. Do you carry HD skin or just the palette?
I carry mostly the palettes and the concealers. And super glows.
I have so many combinations here making forever. It really just depends on kind of who your client is, what kind of artist you want to be. I like HD skin because I can manipulate it really easily. I can fit it out to a typical moisturizer if I need to, or build that up to the full coverage that I need to. I carry 12 colors, 3 per color family. And actually, our country so I carry 5 of those too, because it's mixed mediums. I have all the palettes, but I actually reach for liquids more than I do for the palettes for like the general application of the cream collection. Now let's go ahead and let's start a couple of the 2 areas of home Jocelyn. So again, we already saw it's not really transferred, but Jocelyn says she does get a little bit more production in that center. So I'm going to go ahead and we're just going to do a little bit of additional security just in the center. So this is our HD skin setting color. They come in these minis or they come in like these giant full sizes. I like the minis. These do come in 12 colors. So there are 4 color correcting shades, and then there are 8 like flesh tone ones. And we like to have everything even. So we have 2 per color family, 2 for the ones, 2 for the twos, 2 for the fours. Pushing in a 160 brush. Don't set the under eyes until like the very end almost. That's just personal preference to me. I honestly love this powder, and like it's really hard to get excited about like a powder. Like they all kind of function the same. Like we light a powder that I've experienced in a very long time. It is a tough formula, so you may need a little bit more just depending on what your effect is. But it does have cowling to absorb that shine, as well as cornstarch. It gives it that very light body, so you can honestly pack this powder on, and it's not going to look powdery. This is the direction. I like to stuff the makeup a few times throughout the service because if I'm just expecting like one for body to do it at the end, it can feel really heavy in the skin because it's a lot of like polymers forming on top of it. So I can do a lot of like thin layers in the middle. You see, Gossip is fully highlighted contour, complexion, under eyes. Does she not look like Gossip? Don't think up. Now, after we do all of this, we're going to work top to bottom. So we're going to go ahead and start on Gossip's eyes. Browser. And I am going to go with 2 different brow products. So first and foremost, we are going to go in here. This is my baby. No one likes her except for me. That's fine. This is our Aqua Resist Brow Sculptors. This is basically like a cream pomade, super waterproof. Really good if they have like very sparse brows and you may not have like the most time to build in a full brow with a pencil. I like doing this because it's very quick, very easy, and I like using this in a lighter color than their brows. So I'm able to kind of basically create a shadow and that perfect shape I'm going for. and then add in all the definition with a pencil that does match the brow color. So for the sculptor, I'm going with 25, which is a shade lighter than her brow color, and then for the pencil, a 40. So anything at making forever that says aqua resist or aqua or blah blah blah, anything is waterproof. When we say waterproof, we really mean waterproof. So the way that we test our waterproof products is via torture testing. So we test it in chlorinated water to see how it withstands against that. We experiment with it in HIT classes to see how it works up against raised body temperature and sebum production, and saunas, so elevated body, and then also external moisture clinging to the skin. That's how we test all of our waterproof products. So when we say waterproof, I've had eyeliner all for 3 days. So I'm going with the Opera's Brush Sculptor 25 on a 274 brush. And again, all of our brushes are synthetic, so you can use them for powders, creams, liquids. It doesn't matter, like kind of like what the brush says it's for. If it works what you need it for, it works. We're working this into the arc for the tail end. And never underestimate just how lazy I am. I want to get a brow on as quick as I can. So I like to use people to really just get that shape on there and then really refine it with a pencil as opposed to building it out with that pencils. Personal preference of myself, I guess. I'm working this into the arc and the tail first. And we can kind of smoothen a little bit through the front of the brow. We definitely want there to be a little bit more depth on that arch towards the tail end, and a little bit more kind of openness and sparsity in that front part. Seconds, we guys see the point of between her brows. A little bit of like I poured way too much on here. Like I've had these tubes in my kit for like 8 months and I'm not even like halfway done with them. What kind of comment with the same like directional hair growth pattern? I'm sure many of us have heard before, brows are sisters, they're not twins. I think it's a lie. Get them as close to twins as we possibly can. Take the extra time. If you know that you're not great at symmetry, take the extra time. Work that into like the hour and a half you're giving yourself. Get those brows as close as possible. This is 274, so it is going to be a super great brow brush for anything like pomade, or even if you're using a pencil and you want to kind of clean it up and smooth it out. Use more. Again, you have to adjust where you're standing so you can see better. Absolutely do it. You are not set up to that one stuff. And we can see it's a little bit lighter, but it's creating a shadow. If I went with some like a pomade that was going to be the same color as her brows, sharpie brow. We want there to be some dimension in the brows. You definitely want to use a couple of colors on this one. Now I'm going to go with the upwards brow definer. This is our thin girl, super, super pointed. There we go. This one is quite a bit darker, so we're just going to go ahead and use this to create that dimension and do those like individual hairline strokes that we generally see. Same thing, I'm going to start at the tail end, and with each flick that I'm doing it in the same direction that her hair is actually growing. So the dolphin, front of her brows grow up and a little bit towards like the ends of her face. Once you get to her arch though, they actually go straight down. Brows are super personal to your client. They usually know how they like their brows. So this is also another point when you're kind of having a consultation with your style. That you really want to like understand how they like their brows. Take like a step like 10 feet back and then look at that. Any questions on brows or any of our wonderful products? Using the brow nose here now. Yeah, we have our offers brow fixers, which is like a super thin, more creamy like pomade gel. We don't have a clear one, unfortunately, though. And probably they do at some point, but all of these are tinted ones that we. We have two sizes of pencil, so we have the finer that's super like thin, but we also have the filler that's same colors, just a lot thicker. And then we have the sculptor that I'm using, and then we have the brow fixer that Tim's talking about. It's like a gel. So we have four. Yeah, two are pencils. One is like a squeeze tube, and then one is like a gel component. Yeah, we got a lot of options. We're really doing some. Yeah, we're an artist. What works for you?
How do you find what color brow you look for your client?
So I always go trial and error. Whenever, because I'll always use at least two colors on a brow, occasionally three. I will always find the color that matches and have that be my like pencil that I'm using to do those individual hairline strokes, and that depth in certain areas, specifically more towards like that arch to the tail end. And then whatever undertone I'm using for that, I'm gonna go one shade lighter to create that like shadow underneath it. I can actually do this with two pencils. I would use like the 25 pencil and then the 40 pencil, just do the 25 that I did with the sculptor earlier. But she already kind of had the roadmap there. She has a shape to her brows, they're just a little bit more sparse. So. You can actually do someone's brows with just one color, and maybe just like vary how much intensity you're putting. Like maybe near the tail end, you just press harder or go over it a few more times to get that depth, and then do that same pencil a little bit light-handed in front. You totally can do that. I just like having the two colors so it actually bounces and works off each other a little bit better. We're symmetrical though, and I gotta like do a bunch of. She got good skin. She got good skin. I will say, I do recommend having a trial if you're taking bridal plans. A couple of things that you definitely want to like let them know is like if they plan on doing anything like an exfoliation treatment or like anything like a med spa, don't do it like the day before their wedding. They're going to purge. They're going to have a reaction possibly. If they do like a peel and they can't put on makeup for like 48 to 72 hours, make sure you have that information beforehand and let them know like, hey, if you plan on doing this is in your repertoire, this is in your budget, you're going to med spa, do it a few weeks before. Maybe like 2 weeks, 7 minimum. Waxing, I don't recommend doing exactly the day before. Maybe 2, 3, I'd say 3 days to be safe, honestly. So we got some estheticians in the house. What would you all recommend for a bride to do her waxing before makeup?
Please?
Yeah. Oh, even tell them to do their feminine instead of waxing. That might be better for them, honestly. All right. Now we're gonna look at eyes. And notice I didn't put anything like a foundation, concealer, or like an eye base. Don't always need. So I will say, especially for like if you're using like a complexion product as your base, absolutely can. I generally recommend using something that has like a matte finish to it. so it doesn't stay too emollient. The eyelets can be very oily as is, so if you use like a hydrating concealer as your eyeshadow base, no, it can cause the shadows to A, change color because you're not saturating them with moisture, but also just migrate throughout the day. Using a complexion product, totally can. I recommend matte. It will mute the colors you lay on top of it oftentimes. So what I'm going to do is, because I know I already have a game plan, I'm actually going to go in with a Summer Asian Skin palette. I'm going to build out my base color in an actual pigment versus doing like her flush tone and then building on top of that. Less products, quicker time frame, work smarter, not harder. Because I'm what? Lazy. Actually, going to go in with a little bit of. This is our Face Essentials. This is our Harmony 1 palette. This is good for your fair clients. We also have it in Harmony 3, which is good for your tan to deep. This is cream. So this is another HD skin cream product. So same kind of like rhetoric. It's going to be silicone based, medium to full coverage, natural matte finish. We got our fair to medium here, our tan to deep here. We have blushes, highlighters, and then flesh tones. And then we do have, and this over here is going to be like very good sculpting shades. This one's super cool tone for your fair client. This one's a lot more of like a neutral deep, which is going to work a little bit better because it's super like cool tone, deep color can oftentimes make your deep clients look like a little too casket running. That's cool. So when you go with the H1, I'm just going to take a little bit of a sculpting shade. Now, I would recommend using a spatula when you're pulling out from these palettes. I don't really recommend putting your brush directly into the component because your brushes have touched your client's face. If you're going back and forth a lot to build up coverage, you can start to harbor bacteria. So these palettes are fantastic. There's so many options in one spot. I always recommend taking a little bit out of it and putting on a palette. A 144 brush, and we're just going to start picking out some of this cool tone. Because I'm already going to do a cool tone based on the eyes anyway, now I'm taking out that extra step. I don't need to do a bunch of building up that cool tone shadow on top of a flush tone base, but then building it in with that cream. This is a waterproof product, so it's going to help to mitigate any of that seed production. But I already have color down. I'd say probably one of the greatest pieces of advice I ever received when it came to like how to like really build your kit is if it's the color you need or the texture you need or the finish you need, if it's called a blush, but you need it as a lip, use the lip. If it is a cream product, but you need it as like an eyeshadow, use it. They look like our brushes. That's why I will love that all the brushes synthetic that even though this is technically, I think we call it a highlighter brush. I use it for everything but highlighting. Because it's just gonna fit my needs. So like our HD skin palettes are so great because they're so versatile. They are custom for all of the face. So eyes, lips, on the face. It's really helpful to A, make your kit lighter. And also really get most bang out of your buck. If you know this palette that has all these blushes, and you know maybe you're not going to use these blushes, but they're pretty lip colors, use them more color. Transferable lid with this color, and then buffing up the edges. And you have very gentle lip at the end. So I already have a base color, and we're going to start building up that. We'll take a 216 brush, and I'm just going to start to kind of buff out and really have the top of the transition kind of fade out and cupping. So with that, I'm going to take a finishing powder. So this is our HTC finishing powder in 1.1. I'm going to feed it into the 216 brush. That's right. controversies like the shoe powder versus setting powder. I personally do carry both in my kit because they do have very different practices. Setting powder is just that. It's going to set down any of your creams and liquids underneath that need to have like the excess moisture pulled out of them. Where finishing powders can kind of do that, but their main focus and like their primary job, honestly, is to diffuse and blur. So you'll see this a lot when it comes to photography and you really kind of having some of the face really diffused out. And I love using finishing powder on the eyes and really diffusing out the kind of finishing colors because finishing powders generally really high in mica and silica. They have to reflect light. So let's say you do an eyeshadow look and it's getting a little patchy because maybe you've layered too many colors and there's nothing really sticking anymore. Take a finishing powder on a fluffy brush, brush it through. It's going to diffuse that light and make it look. What's up?
Said earlier, you still haven't set for eyes. Do you have any tips to prevent like cracking in your eyes?
Like cracking?
Like when they like cracks, like sets into the under eyes.
So because we're using like liquids and creams, even if they've like air dried down, they're still gonna be a little bit mobile because I didn't powder them down. So that's why I generally do it like at the end because I want to make sure that let's say there's potential for fallout. I need to wipe some out. It's still a little emollient. It's gonna be easier to clean. When it's fully set down, it's gonna hold on and grip that color, and you're gonna have to redo it. So I like to kind of leave it a little bit more tactile, a little bit more malleable, and then set at the end when I know I'm done. So I'm gonna take two of our Arsenal palettes. I'm gonna take this one, so Boundless Berry, and so whatever black. I'm gonna go into our Boundless Berry. These are eyeshadow powders. Okay. So we have 4 colors that are kind of pre-made. They're the really heavy hitters from Orange Color Pencils. We have like a Anywhere Caffeine or Walnut, a whatever black and a Boundless Berry. I really like Boundless Berry and whatever black and white. I'm gonna take this full tone medium shade on that same 216 brush. I'm not flicking it downward, I'm kind of flicking it up so it goes into the barrel. And start on the third. Now we have individual shadows. I actually prefer the formula in these pre-made palettes a little bit more. And it goes off of. Do you like the single shadows or the palette better? Yeah. So it's going ahead and I'm kind of cutting it into like a meter out of there. So I lift it up, getting it right in our natural over the bone. And I'm not depositing too much extra, but I'm dragging what I deposited on the right there. You said see a lot of neutral when it comes to bridal. Any bride that in New York, I will say they want neutral, they want cool tone, they don't want super warm right now. Of course, case by case basis, but oftentimes I am seeing a lot more kind of tones being fed into the bridal business. Looking straight, very relaxed, because that's how their eyes are going to be 99% of the time. If you're doing your whole eyeshadow look when their eyes are closed and they open, you may like miscalculate it and not done it the way that people are going to see it. So like to have look straight, relax, and then I'll where their eyes are going to rest the majority of the time. Their natural face. of this fair pinky shade on a 60212 brush. So it's another bullet brush, but it's a little bit more tapered versus more rounded when I was using. A little bit of this fair pink. Fair color, and then if you can bring it all the way in. So by the time I get third and a third, it's already kind of leveled out. That's right. People like to start with their favorite transition color and then build to their depth that way. I kind of like to start with a unique color, blend up and kind of shape where I need it to, and then use alkaline color and then add that deepest color last. Mapping out our wave, and I honestly love mapping it away in an eyeshadow first. So I'm actually going to go in with our 220 brush, with a flat packing brush, feed it into that whatever black palette. Now, we don't see a lot of wing liner in bridal lately. I will say 2025 we're seeing a little bit more. There was a couple of years that there wasn't really much liner, but we are seeing a resurgence of liner when it comes to bridal makeup. And I will say, I am not a heart surgeon. I do not have a steady hand. I overcaffeinate myself and there's something in. Fact of the matter. So it doesn't make you less of an artist if like you can't, bang out a perfect crisp wing with a liquid liner on your first try. This find what works for you. I'll typically map out with a shadow first, or I'll do like a non-waterproof pencil and map it out, refine it, get my perfect shape as something I'm able to manipulate, and then when I need to bump it up, then I can do a liquid on top of it, because if that liquid isn't perfect, you're probably not seeing it because I already have it, the perfect shape underneath with a black color that's able to manipulate it. What? You're going here. Or is that? Oh. I got it. Raise your hand if you have some difficulty doing the wing liner on other people. Yeah. So I'm not, if you put a liquid in my hand, I will not do it. Do I have a liquid here? Yes, but I will show you how you can do it afterwards. But I want you powders. I love using our gel pencils on a brush because you have a lot more control when you're feeding it into a brush. We don't have hot liners right now. They did. But yeah, I want you. There's so many options out there, so many ways to do it. Look, that was like less than a minute. It's pretty straight, pretty easy. I'm gonna wing it out a little bit, but like use a shadow if that's what your preference. Use a pencil and kind of blend out with a brush. Go back to my stomach manager. Not one way to do everything. There's other ways. One of you in the crowd is thinking he's using black shadow, there's no fallout. Really creamy formula. Super dense brush, if I was blending out the black shadow, then that's what I have potential for fallout. Because I'm feeding it into the brush, pressing it into the excess, and I'm pushing it in, there's literally almost no potential for fallout. This is our choose file, choose one. Choose you, I use it for everything. Symmetrical plastic liner on both sides, and I'll swing it out a little bit. Take a little bit more, flick of the wrist. How's that hard? Ew. Really? Probably the best advice I ever got when it came to green liner training is just get it on there and fix it afterwards. Just throw it on there, fix it afterwards. Because the more you're like they're trying to get it perfect on the first try, you're gonna psych yourself out. You're gonna shake more. You're gonna double guess yourself. Like, just get it on there. It's just makeup. You can clean up a line. You're fine. You're like, ah, just get it on there, fix it after. Fine. And they're not totally symmetrical. And I do like this side better, so I'm gonna fix this side. Let's. And because it's just the powder and nothing set, I would go with like a concealer or micellar water. Just take a brush. And like you're not doing makeup if you're not like bent in like a weird, like crazy position while you're doing it. Look like a Slender Man right now. So when I'm doing the outer third, I always tell them, look straight, keep your face relaxed. If you're doing something like trying to get to the inner corner, then I would oftentimes have them look in the opposite direction and either look up or down, depending on where I'm trying to get. So like if I'm going to, because Jocelyn doesn't have like the most like mobile lid space like in the inner third, I'm not going to bring the liner all the way in, but just direct them on where you need them to look for you to work the fastest. So especially when we're trying to get like that inner corner, it works really well for them to look in the opposite direction of where you're going because it actually stretches out that skin as well. So I'll typically have them like if I'm doing her inner corner over here, I'll tell her look down. I look towards like my shoulder over here. I'll throw my shoulder, and I'll start going. And you can see how that skin stretches out a little bit. Take a step back to make sure it's something. And I will say, I'm going to talk about a little bit about what a crimson color problem. When it comes to like doing like black and waterline or something, I will say not many actually can really carry that. Also, really. You want to refine what they want. So you can have your opinions as an artist supposed to work with the customer, but like they're held on having like black all around the room. Make it exactly, make it happy. Yeah, especially if you have your bride who's like, you know, an elder millennial who grew up in like in the early 2000s, smudging out that black liner all over, give it to them. That's how they feel beautiful. Girl, I get it. Me too. Now, most way. The bottom, just connect it on the outer third. I don't want to. Let's look anyway. I'm not doing it all the way across. I just want to ground it into her lower lash line, so it's not like a floating wing. Now, if we wanted to add some liquid to this and intensify it, we totally can. Let's do that. You can do either a gel pencil, a pop liner. I typically go for a gel pencil, but I will show you how to use a liquid liner on top of a powder. All day. So this is what I offer is this taller ink liner. I like these because I'm able to take out some of the pigment and not have to like share one with anybody. If you put this on your client's eyes, I recommend you gift it to them or cut it to the price. This is our number one black. Our 250 a brush. Take a little flat island brush. It's time. So because I've already did all of the like work with like having like the size of the wing and the direction of the wing with that shadow, I just want to bump it up so I don't need to have something as fat. So fitting it into the 250 brush, we're gonna have you look down and then look towards the nose. So I feel comfortable because you basically laid down like the tracing paper that you're just going over. Get her one more time. Super quick, super easy. It doesn't intensify the shape I already had, but I didn't have to go quite as far out because I already refined that shape. We just made this a little bit more pigment there. Also locked it in because I just put a waterproof liner on top of it. Any questions?
Is that your preference? Or is it a better way to do, or it's kind of a different island? Start from, generally go inside and you see you going outside in. Is it better?
Again, it depends on yourself as an artist. I will always do the liner on the outside first, just to see exactly how far in I need to go, because more often than not, you don't need to bring your liner all the way into the inner third. Not everyone has enough mobile lift space to support that, but if they want the lift that a liner can provide, better to do most of the work on the outside and then see exactly how much moving inside. Because like, even if you look at like biotics, for me, it works better to actually just tight line underneath my lashes, because if you start canceling out the mobile lift space I go over here, my eyes are very round, so if you start getting rid of this, it starts making them look very beady. I'm going to take a little bit of the superficials. We're going to go back to Boundless Fairy and a 216 brush. Whisper this across the bottom lash line. No, we're going to pour stuff on the eyes. I'm not leaving everything. The reason why I want to do liner before I do any like shimmer on her lid or anything is I'm using loose pigments. So if I did the liner afterwards, it could get very challenging. So sometimes you want to kind of switch up the order in which you're doing things. So go ahead and take our shade number 13 and our sterling powder. It is just a very pigmented loose pigment, and it's a nice champagne gold. A little bit. On another 144 brush. You can see there's a lot of things behind it. So it's on number 13, or number 13 and number 15 are the ones that sell the most to our bridal artists. me, which was going with a more wearable brush and really helping it into the top of her natural crease. Essentially, it did like a cut crease, so I actually happened to cut the crease. This is number 13, and then number 15 is a little popular one. It's like a pinky, like champagne color. This is more like a yellow champagne. So I took off the excess. That was on my 144. Run this through the crease for 24 times. Some jersey butter. So I'm gonna add one more loose pigment on top. So that was our starlit powder. This is our starlit diamond. So those are like super pigmented. These are all about the glitter reflect to it. So I'm taking number 102. Guys, we're going to give a little bit of a base work stick to it. Another security layer powder, and now let's go ahead and take some of this starlit diamond. All of that glitz and glam was what, 2 products, 30 seconds? This was Starlit Diamond 102. A 103 has got like a little like blue shift to it. The 104's got a little purple shift to it. Have all the close yeah, it's loose. Yeah, so it's a little particles, a lot of impact real quick. I use the 144 to do something a little bit more dense if you're trying to be a little bit more like run a little bit more. I tend to just have it be like a nice sweep across. So I use the 144, which is the same brush I use for a highlight, our contour. Think I use it for something else. Use for anything you need to. It's stuff adhering because it's such a microparticle. It doesn't need like a tacky base underneath. But I did do that light mist and fix just to have a little bit of moisture already on the lid because I just went in with another loose powder underneath it. So I want to kind of set that in and then do the glitter on top. Not yet. I'm going to kind of like let anything that's going to fall naturally fall and then spray her again at the end. Last but not least, we're going to go in with the mascara. So I'm going to go with professional mascara. Typically, I would do a waterproof mascara, but often I do not get a waterproof small. So I'm being conscious of that. So just like I was talking about the liner, you don't really want to touch your client's eye with the outer component. Same thing in your mascara. If you want to use a mascara wand on your client, gift it to them. But the way I like to do mascara, what I do is I dip in one disposable into the component. I have a second empty disposable. Now this one that I dipped right in, you can already see how much is on there. The second one is the one I'm actually going to apply all of her lashes. So we will control how much I'm adding on. So what's true with this, oftentimes you'll get a clumping, you'll get spider lashes. Have that second disposable on hand that you're going to wipe the one that you dip into the compartment. It's a really good way to control what you're doing. Because I'm not giving my client a mascara, I like her. And towards your nose. And you guys are in for a special treat today. I almost never do people's mascara in closet. I have to do it themselves. Hey, if there's a benefit having another makeup in your church, your mom will have them do their own hair. I will say, get comfortable doing so much mascara. What I'm doing is I'm using a powder puff to lift your lashes. And then I'm just getting in there. You will oftentimes have your client will probably like to do their own mascara, but be comfortable doing their mascara for them. Maybe they want the whole experience of just having everything done for them. Sometimes they'll prefer to do it themselves because they know they can get a little bit closer than you can without irritating themselves. Press, lift, work, flip.
When you're doing the top.
Now, when you're doing the top, I prefer to have them look down and then to the side towards their nose, because that way I can lift them the other third and then start getting, because we're gonna want the most product anyway. And then if you like really need to get the like inner part, same thing, down, look up direction. And then go in from the other side where they're not seeing your hand or where you're kind of looking from. It's gonna help them in like a sensory perspective of not being like freaked out that you're like trying. It's a little bit more left one. Look down and towards my shoulder. Down towards the shoulder. Down towards the middle. Some bridal eyes. The last one, glitter. Glitter will go around. Get glitter while you can before the FDA outlaws it in all cosmetics. A little bit of blush and then what? So our HD Skin Concealer is the newest, or full cover concealer is the newest launch, but these launched like 2 months ago. These are artist color crayons. So we have 24 colors in studio. They are a mix of either highlights, blushes, contours, bronzers. These, I don't want to say we use anywhere on the face, but if you look at the bottom, it does have a photo of an eye, a face, and a lip that shows you where you can use it. Really, the only ones that they don't recommend around the eyes are the ones that have potentials to stain. So the ones that have a lot of like red or carmine in it. And then same thing, the only ones that don't really recommend around the lips are the ones that are like the highlighters, because they have like a microparticle, which I don't know. You're not gonna die from it, but like these are just the recommended things. Have I used the ones that aren't tested for the eyes around the eyes? Absolutely, on myself. What you do at home is your business. Go with 2 colors and do a little bit of blush on Dawson. So we're gonna go in with 126 Peachy Coral and then 101 Blush and Pink. So since we did so much like beautiful work with like the lifting, we're gonna lift a little bit with the blush, but that's not what we need to. So I still want to make sure that we're having some beautiful volume at the apple of the cheek, blushing bright. We was thinking about the color over here, but I want to kind of fade out and lift with a little bit more intense blush. So we'll go ahead with the darker color first. So this is the 101. With our 156 brush, and we'll start picking it up. I don't recommend putting this directly onto the face, just because these are a waterproof product, and because we have a waterproof foundation underneath, that waterproof can start making it dry down very, very quickly, and it may not be the easiest to blend out. Also, sanitation. Go ahead and start building this color up. Right. I give you a little fan. And this also gives you a lot more control. I'll show you in a minute. I'll swipe it directly on my hand and you'll see just how much pigment you have. Put it on the face and you don't blend out quick enough, you'll good luck. I don't, like you can see, they're not super powdery looking, which is honestly my favorite thing, because that's kind of the game that you run whenever you're playing with waterproof, is oftentimes unless it has like a shimmer to it, it will look powdery. Now I know Jocelyn, so she's gonna want more blush. So I'm gonna go with another layer on both sides. Blush blindness is real with Jocelyn. Same thing, do a little bit more, 156 brush, pick it up. Now it's going to build over the layer that I just did. Talking about kind of like having colors blend in like all three pieces of the face, we're talking about the proportion vertically. Take just a little bit more of that blush. And almost like I did with that contour, it's kind of having it fed into the top and bottom. So a little bit more in the center, a little bit more localized. Also, when your skin naturally flushes, there's quite a bit of color that hits the center. You have the most sebaceous glands, a lot more kind of circulation in the center of the face. So just having a little bit of that color there. Looks a little more natural, but it's having like 18 color days. Go with that more peachy blush. And this one we're going to focus it a little bit more centered on the upper of the cheek. Now, blush can do just as much for like the proportions of the face as like highlighting contour. So you can lift the blush, you can add volume to the face of blush, you can just really just put it on the outer of the cheek if you add some very beautiful volume to the face. Oftentimes, especially with like your more mature clients, they love having it over here because it brings a little more volume to their face. As we know, we get a little bit older. There's a little bit of a loss of like fat in the area, especially like the buccal fat region. So you can do a lot with blush and really change a portion of the face. In the 80s, they didn't use actual contours, they contoured with blush. And then simulated highlight into contour, or lighter into deeper, or blending this lighter blush into the deeper blush. Everything builds off itself, and makeup. A lot of the concepts can be used interchangeably in different areas. Last but not least, we're going to do some lips. So going with the Art Club Pencil Extreme, this is our waterproof lip liner. And we do have Art Club pencils that honestly I feel like everybody knows about those. I feel like the extremes are still kind of flying under the radar. So these are waterproof, super saturated, really amazing colors. But some of the colors that are like fan favorites in the Art Club pencil, like Warmer Walnut, Cow, and your caffeine. We have it in waterproof, and these are just so beautiful. This is such a creamy color as well. Formulas, either a waterproof or a waterproof. This one is the waterproof, and I'm just learning the process of this. It's going from the corner to connect to the center. And before it dries down, we need to kind of clean up the blend and go with our 400 tone lifting brush. So again, if you're not looking for the whole day, at least that's why I'm putting on a waterproof color. That even the lipstick I put on top of the such a fade, there's still some color underneath that's probably like clung to the lips very nicely. Talking about lipstick, taking one of our palettes. This is our blush and glow palette. I don't care if this is blush. I don't care if this is glow. These are fantastic lipstick colors. So I'm gonna go ahead and actually take these two colors right here that go with the rest of our color store very nicely and make a custom lipstick for her. And as I said before, from the palette, I highly recommend going with a palette and removing that. So we're gonna take a little bit of these two colors from our blush and glow. Another waterproof formula, so this will stick to the lips just as well. But your bride's eating, she's drinking. Once she has that salad with some oil in it, it's gonna start breaking down some of the product. So at least we have that second layer of waterproof product underneath with that pencil. Taking that same 400 liquid pencil, hat brush. I'm gonna start. Now, it's keep calling it a calligraphy brush. This is technically a brush for body painting. I don't care. This works so good for the lips because the slanted kind of positioning works so well, just kind of getting into the curvature of the lip. Why are they like a wide lip? Because we have so much going on in the eyes. We're talking about balance. If we got like a really full eye going on with all these glitters, we don't need a super, super bold lip. But if you're trying the all the glitter in the world and then like your bright red lip, do it. I always tell people that the stronger you go, the more room for error is going to be usable. So something like a really like strong red lip, maybe give yourself a little bit more time to execute it. Maybe have a little bit of like security powder going around because we're going with something a little bit more muted. Then like eyeliner. If you want to have like a really strong, like long wing, there's more room for error. Give yourself time to adjust and read it. Last but not least, I want you to go in with our Mist and Fix matte. So this is going to be the stuff. It's going to help to like mattify the skin a little bit more. I'd say it's more of like a velvet, less matte, but it's going to be a little bit stronger, will hold for battling any type of oil production. Again, we're going to do another layer of security in that center where it feels a little more oil. But I'm going to put it on a powder puff and sort of straight to the skin. I go straight to the skin with this. It doesn't work the same way that I'm pushing it into the area exactly where I need it. Okay, now she's ready for her wedding. Do you have any questions about the techniques, about the products? What's that?